Welcome to this explainer, where we are unpacking the realities of British Columbia's social safety net. Now, if you live in BC, you already know that the landscape of financial and housing assistance is, well, it's massive. It's robust, but it's also deeply, deeply complex. So today, we're going to break down exactly how these support systems work, look at the actual tools available to access them, and examine the active, ongoing conversations around shaping their future. But first, let's just address the elephant in the room, right? How do you actually navigate BC's benefits? Just acknowledging the reality here. Navigating government assistance can often feel like wandering through an overwhelming maze of bureaucratic jargon. I mean, you've got acronyms everywhere, strict eligibility thresholds, and literal mountains of paperwork. It can be incredibly daunting, especially when you're already dealing with the day-to-day stresses of managing a disability or just trying to keep a roof over your family's head. But hey, here is the really good news. You do not have to navigate this maze blindly. Decoding BC's social safety net really boils down to three key pillars: information, systemic advocacy, and housing support. There are maps, comprehensive guides, and really active grassroots movements explicitly designed to help residents like you decode these systems and advocate for better outcomes. So here's our roadmap for today. We'll start by looking at disability benefits help sheets. Then we'll check out the systemic push for a $2,100 monthly benefit. And finally, we'll dive into the rental assistance program, including a step-by-step guide on how to actually apply. All right, kicking things off with Section 1, Disability Benefits Help Sheets. If you aren't familiar with the Disability Alliance BC, or DSCBC, you should be. They are an incredibly trusted, long-standing resource in the province. Since 1977, they've been this essential cross-disability voice, providing direct services, advocacy, and incredibly useful self-help publications. They are basically the seasoned guide you desperately want in your corner when you're trying to figure out the provincial benefit system. And what's really incredible about the DABC is just how much they prioritize accessibility. Their highly popular help sheets have recently been translated to ensure they reach as many people as possible. You can get these vital self-help guides in English, Arabic, Persian, Punjabi, and Spanish. It's a massive step in removing those frustrating language barriers from the benefits process. Plus, these guides are incredibly comprehensive. Navigating the initial Persons with Disabilities application, there's a guide for that. Trying to figure out an appeal after a denial, they've absolutely got you covered. From the disability tax credit all the way to filing your income taxes while on benefits, there is a specific help sheet designed to walk you right through the whole shebang. Okay, moving to Section 2, the push for $2,100. Understanding the current system is really only one half of the equation, right? So let's focus on one specific number for a second, $2,100. This is the target monthly amount being proposed by the Raise BC PWD campaign. This movement points out that current BC disability assistance rates fall thousands of dollars below the poverty line, and they argue that bringing the monthly payment up to $2,100 would finally align it with Canada's official poverty line. To really understand the perspective driving this campaign, listen to this quote from advocate Spencer Van Floten. The argument here is that at $2,100 a month, individuals on BC disability assistance would, quote, better be able to meet basic needs, instead of choosing between essentials like food, medication, rent, and utilities. The campaign is really trying to highlight the day-to-day friction of trying to survive on the current rates. So how are they pushing for this change? Well, the movement relies heavily on public petitions to gather support and demonstrate that public backing directly to lawmakers. It's a prime example of how systemic advocacy operates right alongside the bureaucratic resources we just talked about, trying to shift the baseline of the social safety net from the outside. All right, shifting gears to Section 3, the Rental Assistance Program, or RAP. Let's transition from systemic advocacy to immediate, tangible housing support. What exactly is RAP? Simply put, it's a specific monthly subsidy intended to help eligible, low-income working families pay their rent in the private market. It's a direct reimbursement designed to help bridge that stressful gap between household income and the high cost of housing. Let's break down the rules here, because this is where people often get tripped up. To qualify for RAP, your gross household income, so that's before taxes, must be $60,000 or less. You also need to have less than $100,000 in assets, and you absolutely must have at least one dependent child. If you exceed those income or asset caps, or if you're already living in subsidized housing, unfortunately, you won't qualify for this one. And this brings us to a really vital and honestly, it's sometimes frustrating friction point in the system: how RAP interacts with disability assistance. See, RAP is a provincial shelter subsidy, but income and disability assistance already include a shelter allowance. Because the government does not double pay shelter subsidies, you generally cannot receive RAP and disability assistance at the exact same time. The only real exception here is if your disability assistance ends and you transition to medical services only. If you do qualify for RAP, it's super important to know how the math actually works. The subsidy is calculated based on maximum rent ceilings, which scale up depending on your family size. As of April 2025, for a family of 3 or less, the rent ceiling is $1,950. For a family of 4 or more, it bumps up to $2,200. Basically, the program reimburses a percentage of the difference between 30% of your gross income and your rent, up to those specific ceilings. Which brings us to our final section, applying for rent help. I love breaking things down into actionable chunks, and applying for RAP is truly just a concrete 3-step process. Step 1, complete the application form. Step 2, gather and attach your supporting documents. And Step 3, submit everything to BC Housing. It sounds incredibly simple, but the devil is always in the details of Step 2. Let's look at those mandatory documents you literally cannot skip. You need your income tax return and notice of assessment. Now, you can optionally provide CRA consent to let BC Housing check this for you, which definitely saves some paperwork. You absolutely need proof of status in Canada for everyone in the household. You need proof of rent, like your tenancy agreement or a recent rent receipt. And finally, you must provide a personalized void check or a direct deposit form from your bank. In the world of RAP, payments are exclusively direct deposit. No paper checks in the mail here, folks. Once you have your form and your documents all gathered up, you've got plenty of submission options. You can use their online program upload form, you can drop it off in person, fax it, or mail it. But, and this is a massive word of warning if you use the mail, send copies only. Never, ever mail your original birth certificates or tax documents. You will not get them back. So we've covered the bureaucratic guides, the active advocacy pushing for change, and the specific step-by-step mechanics of housing support, which leaves us with a pretty provocative final question. How will these opposing forces, systemic advocacy pushing for more and bureaucratic structures managing what's currently available, continue to shape the reality of BC's poverty line? Robust tools clearly exist to help you navigate the present, but the debate over what the future safety net should look like, that is far from over. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and until next time, keep asking the big questions.